In an NSTEMI, what we see is ST depression as illustrated by this area here on the ECG. And the reason for that is usually due to a partial occlusion of an artery, and the patient has then done something that requires a bit of exertion, and when their heart suddenly needs to start beating faster to supply the body's demands, it itself needs more oxygen, and because of the occlusion, it means that not enough oxygen can get to those tissues. So you get ischemia, and it's usually, well, it pretty much always is, going to be subendocardial ischemia, okay, which I'll illustrate with that red dashed area. And the reason it's the subendocardial tissue is because it's the furthest away from the artery. So any reduced perfusion is going to cause that area to become ischemic first, because it's literally a greater distance for the O2 to travel. So what does that mean? Well, the key point to remember is that ischemic tissue depolarizes. Okay. The other key point is that the depolarization can actually spread into the surrounding tissue, because the surrounding tissue has, well, between myocytes you have connections, and it means that therefore the ischemia is going to cause depolarization in all the surrounding tissue, like so. Okay. So the key point to remember is that this depolarization has a vector. Okay, it has a direction that it moves in. Okay, which means that if we have an overlying lead here, it'll pick up depolarization moving towards it. Same with the lead over here or over here. Okay, but essentially what that means is that this lead is going to pick up depolarization moving towards it, which is a positive value. So an overlying lead will pick up a positive voltage and that will give us a raised baseline. Now the reason for that is because suddenly there's a positive voltage being read by a heart that could be at rest. Okay, so at this point here, the heart's at rest. Okay, there's no depolarization moving through it, but we have this ischemic tissue here causing depolarizing currents to move in this direction, okay, this direction. Okay, so any overlying lead is going to pick up a positive voltage. Okay, let's cross that T there. And that's going to cause the baseline to be raised. And what we mean by that is, instead of the baseline starting at 0 millivolts, like a normal one would, instead of starting here, it's going to start up here. Okay? So what does that mean? Well, that is essentially how we get an NSTEMI. Okay? So I'm going to draw it out in a little bit more detail, step by step. Okay, so remember, if we draw a normal ECG, we can see the baseline at the PR interval, the ST segment, and the TP segment. Okay? I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So, in normal, healthy tissue, I'm going to move over here. In normal healthy tissue, in the PR segment, the PR interval I should say, the heart looks like this, okay? The ventricle I should say looks like this. It's not depolarized, okay? It's at rest. In the ST segment, the heart is depolarized. Okay. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller and move it over. And in the TP segment, the height is back again to being depolarized. So we have our overlying lead here. At all these points, we're going to have a reading of 0 millivolts. Okay? And that's because the heart is not changing its charge. So make this a little bit smaller. Okay? There's no change in voltage. Okay? So in the ST segment here, although it's depolarized, it's an unchanging state of depolarization. Okay. However, in an NSTEMI, when we have the normal PR interval, the overlying lead, let's put it here, isn't going to pick up 0 millivolts, as we've said. It's going to have a raised baseline. So instead of the baseline starting down here, it's going to start up here. Going to start at this point here. So up until the PR interval, we're going to have our P wave and our PR interval. Remember, we have our depolarizing signal causing a more positive voltage to be read even at rest. In our ST segment, however, and this is the important bit, in the ST segment, the overlying lead, the ischemic area, I should say, is now unable to depolarize the tissue around it, as we said over here, okay? So the depolarization has a vector because it can depolarize the tissue around it, okay? But that can't happen anymore because all the tissue around it is already depolarized. So if I draw that again, a normal P wave, QRS is normal, okay? But now all of a sudden, in the ST segment, the space after the QRS complex, there's now no change. There's no depolarizing current moving towards it. That's not happening anymore, okay? So we get a reading of 0 millivolts. Okay, it goes back to the normal baseline for its ST segment, and relative to the rest of the rest of the ECG tracing, it's depressed. Okay, so just to recap that once again, the depolarizing current from the ischemic area over here causes the baseline to be raised. That raises the P and the P wave and the PR interval and the QRS complex as well. But when the whole ventricle reaches that state of unchanging depolarization, is unable, this ischemic area over here, is unable to depolarize the surrounding tissue. So the ischemic area is no longer able to raise the baseline to a more positive value, so it returns to 0. However, with the TP segment now, the heart is repolarized after the T wave, and this ischemic area continues, causing a depolarizing current to move towards the overlying lead. So it means that when that wave of repolarization moves through the heart, we get our normal T wave, and then it returns back to that raised baseline caused by the depolarizing ischemic area here. And that is why you get ST depression with an NSTEMI. Now, hopefully that all makes sense to you. If it doesn't, watch the video again. And if that doesn't help, okay, leave me a comment in the comment section below, and I'll get back to you. The next video will be on STEMIs.